making body butters for over a year now, and I've always been wondering how I could prevent my body butter from melting while traveling or during the summer months. So today I'm going to try out 2 different techniques. Hey guys, my name is Vaila, and I'm all about finding different ways to reduce the chemicals in your daily life. So if that's something that interests you, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of my videos. So I've been researching different ways to prevent my body butter from melting, and 2 techniques always kind of popped up. The first one being about adding a small amount of hard butter into my body butter, and the second one being about incorporating small amounts of beeswax in my formulation. So today I'm going to try to think about these 2 techniques and hopefully they work. Let's go! So before we start the experiment, we will need to adjust our formulation, and here I'm starting off with a really basic recipe consisting of 67% of shea butter and 33% of sunflower seed oil. Now, my research showed that the best results are obtained by adding between 0.5 and 2% of a hard butter or beeswax, and since I live in a colder climate, I decided to stick to 1%, but if you live somewhere where it's warmer, you might want to increase that amount to 2%. And to add 1% of a hard butter or beeswax to the formula, you will need to decrease the amount of shea butter by 1%, as shown here on the right. So now that our formula is clear, we can start experimenting. Okay, in this first technique, I'm going to try to increase the melting point of my body butter by adding a small amount of a hard butter. In this case, I'm using cocoa butter, and how it works is that cocoa butter is a hard butter at room temperature and has a higher melting point than shea butter has. You can actually tell by just looking at both butters. Shea butter is soft and melts to the touch, whilst cocoa butter is hard and does not stick to your fingers. Thus, by adding a small amount of cocoa butter to my buttery butter, it will set harder and have a higher melting point. So I already weighed out my ingredients, and for 50 grams of buttery butter, I'll need 32.5 grams of shea butter, 17 grams of sunflower seed oil, and 0.5 grams of cocoa butter. And I'm going to start by adding the shea butter to a mixing bowl and slightly whipping it up. Once it's done, I'm going to melt down the cocoa butter, and for the sake of this experiment, I'm doing this in a microwave. Once the cocoa butter is melted down, I'm adding it to my mixing bowl together with the sunflower seed oil. And I'll mix everything together until I obtain a whipped cream consistency. Once I'm happy with the consistency, I can package it up and dry it in a cool, dry place until it sets. So in this second technique, I'm using beeswax, and beeswax actually has a super high melting point. So by adding a small amount of beeswax to my body butter, it will increase its melting point. And here I'm also making 50 grams of body butter, so I'll need 32.5 grams of shea butter, 17 grams of sunflower seed oil, and 0.5 grams of beeswax. And I'm actually starting off the same way by adding the shea butter to a mixing bowl and slightly whipping it up. Once that's done, I'm going to add the sunflower seed oil together with the melted down beeswax to my mixing bowl. And I'll whip everything together until it's well combined. Once I've obtained a whipped cream consistency I'm happy with, I can package it up and store it in a cool, dry place until it sets. So now that both body butters had time to set, I'm going to compare them in efficiency and in texture. And starting off with texture, I have here a plain body butter, a body butter with some cocoa butter added to it, and a body butter with some beeswax. And I'm going to try all 3 of them on my forearm, using the plain body butter as a reference. The first thing I notice is that the plain body butter and a body butter with some cocoa butter added to it start to melt right away when in contact to the skin, whilst the body butter with some beeswax added to it takes a few minutes before melting. So when applied to the skin, the plain body butter feels rich but doesn't feel oily. On the other hand, the body butter with some cocoa butter added to it feels rich but leaves a really thick, oily feeling behind. And the body butter with some beeswax added to it doesn't feel greasy at all and has the texture of a really thick, luxurious lotion that I like and prefer over the texture of my plain body butter. So I might in the future add a little bit of beeswax to my body butters just to elevate its texture. So now that we've compared both techniques in texture, we're going to compare their efficiency, and we're going to do so by melting a little bit of body butter in a water bath and taking its temperature as soon as it starts to melt. So here we're doing so for the plain body butter, which will be used as a reference, and the plain body butter reaches a melting point of 24 degrees Celsius. The body butter with some cocoa butter added to it reaches a melting point of 26 degrees Celsius, which is a little bit higher than the plain body butter, but in my opinion not significant enough to say that this technique really works. And the body butter with some beeswax added to it reaches a melting point of 32 degrees Celsius. So in my opinion, the beeswax technique is really a big winner. It improves the texture of your body butter and it increases the melting point with at least 8 degrees. So that was it for the experiment of today, you guys. If you liked it, please hit thumbs up and let me know in the comments down below which one you would like to see next. Thank you. Bye!